Earthbound is definitely the quirkiest RPG we saw on the Super Nintendo. It kind of followed its own rules, did its own thing, a very cool game. But in this video, we're going to look at it and 10 other games in my Super Nintendo collection. Alright, I want to preface this by saying this is not a best of list. Nothing like that. This is just 10 games that I have in my Super Nintendo collection. Maybe they're games you remember as a child. Maybe they're games you rented. Maybe they're games you owned. And finally have those memories come rushing back to you as we look at them, as we talk about them. So let's get into it. Game number 51 in my Super Nintendo collection is going to be Todd McFarlane's Spawn the video game.
Out of the shadows of a fearful city rises Spawn. Infinite powers are yours. Enemies are everywhere. It's over 40 stages straight from the hit comic Todd McFarlane's Spawn, the video game.
With all the other comic book companies bringing their characters to the 16-bit system, Image Comics stepped in with Todd McFarlane's Spawn the video game. Yeah, that's its full name. I'm just gonna call it Spawn for the rest of the video. That way we'll cut this video down by like half an hour or something. Spawn came to us from Acclaim in October of 1995 in North America. This one is an action style side-scrolling beat-em-up video game with some platforming elements in it and some Street Fighter style fighting moves kind of wrapped up in there too. Spawn has 17 levels, it's got comic book style cutscenes, a password system, unlimited continues, and is overall a really beautiful game to look at. But the thing is, this game is really difficult. Spawn has a bunch of basic attacks. You can float with his cape, you can punch, you can dolphin kick, and that's all great. But unless you have the manual and read the manual, you're gonna be struggling for sure, because Spawn has a bunch of fighting style special attacks that he can actually do, and they just don't tell you about that while you're playing the game. So I was standing there on my first playthrough of this game cursing how hard it was. But I didn't know that I could blast the enemies with a green fireball, or freeze all the enemies, or even teleport. This game does not hold your hand. The Spawn comics are dark, they are gritty, and this game takes that feeling and really runs with it. I do appreciate what they tried to do with this one. I like that they tried to take the beat 'em up style of game and add to it. Sure, there are other games on the Super Nintendo that do this too, but this one took some real shots at being different. It's got levels that have you floating down avoiding spike traps. It's got your standard beat 'em up levels, and they even bring us levels that are actually completely upside down, which is gonna mess with your head for sure. Just trust me there. You're gonna be very thankful that this one has unlimited continues. Todd McFarlane's Spawn the video game is a really cool game to have in my Super Nintendo collection, just because of what Spawn was back in the day. And they did do things a little differently with this one than the other games like it on the console, which I do really appreciate. I just wish it wasn't so hard. Just make sure you figure out those special moves right from the start, and you can have a lot of fun with this one. If you don't get those special moves figured out though, you're definitely going to be in some real trouble here. Game number 52 in my Super Nintendo collection is going to be Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo is an open world action adventure style game that is based on Jurassic Park, the 1990s novel, and the Jurassic Park film from 1993. This one came to us from Ocean in October of 1993, and in this one we're going to be playing as Dr. Grant, and all we really need to do to beat this game is get off the island. The only thing is, if you're going to sit down and play Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo, you're probably going to want to get a comfy chair, because this one is a really long game, and it has no password system. So you're going to have to either leave the console on overnight, or play this one through in one long session. This is one that I do really like. I remember renting it as a kid and playing it and thinking it was so cool just because it was Jurassic Park. I never made it very far in it, but I always thought that it looked super cool. In this one, we're gonna have 5 lives and 2 continues to try to get through the 8 areas to get off the island, which honestly is a lot easier said than done. While we're playing as Dr. Grant, we can move in 8 directions, which is pretty nice. It's got a zombies ate my neighbor vibe to it here. The A button fires our primary weapon, the Y button fires our secondary weapon, and you can swap this one out for a missile launcher, a shotgun, a tranquilizer gun, a gas grenade, and even bolos that actually make the dinosaurs explode. And exploding bolos does sound cool to me. You can pick up these secondary weapons as they drop and kind of select what you want to use. The controls in this one are pretty good, and overall it plays pretty well. The thing is, the map for this one is massive though, and there's no in-game map that we can pull up and see where we are. So you're probably going to want to look up a map on the internet or dig out those half-eaten crayons and draw your own as you go. It is pretty easy to get lost in this one, and with the enemy respawns being just a little too much, it can start to get tedious pretty quickly. In Jurassic Park, we're going to need to explore through the map and pick up the items and the key cards as we go so we can get into the buildings to restore the power or motion sensors or one of a bunch of other things that are going to be required to get us off this island. But the interesting thing with this one is when we enter the buildings, we get swapped into this Wolfenstein style first-person perspective. Sure, looking back, these areas don't look that great, but for the time this came out on the Super Nintendo, this is pretty cool. Now, the dinosaurs we find in the buildings might not be the brightest dinosaurs on the island. They do just stand there until you attack them, as long as you don't get too close to them. But when we're in these buildings, there are areas that you do need night vision goggles, and you can even use a Super Nintendo mouse in these areas, which I honestly didn't know until just recently, and I don't really know why you would want to use it in those areas. But I guess it's kind of cool that you can. This is one that I'm really glad to have in my Super Nintendo collection, mostly because of the nostalgia of renting it and spending a weekend exploring the island and getting eaten by dinosaurs. I love the Jurassic Park movies, so I'm glad I get to play this one again. If you're gonna pick this one up though, just don't have super high hopes for the ending on this one, if you can even make it that far anyways, because it is kind of a basic ending, is a bit of a letdown. But you know what? Jurassic Park is a really cool game on the Super Nintendo. Based on the original Flintstones cartoons that a lot of us kids in the 80s and the 90s watched on reruns, game number 53 in my Super Nintendo collection is gonna be the Flintstones, The Treasure of Sierra Madrock. This one came to us from Taito in 1994. This is a side-scrolling action game with a little bit of a spin to it. The intro to this one tells us that the Water Buffalo's leader has decided to retire, and as his last decree as the Grand Poobah, he makes a contest where whoever finds the treasure of Sierra Madrock gets to be his successor. And if you ever watched an episode of the Flintstones as a kid, you're gonna know right away that Fred and Barney are gonna be on some sort of escapade just based on that story point alone. Now, when I said this one puts a twist on the side-scrolling action game, I did really mean it. In this one, we start out on a world map that represents a themed set of worlds. We start out in Bedrock, we move to Snow Rock, which is an ice world, to Magma Rock, which is a fire world, and a few others as we play through. On these world maps, we're gonna see ourselves rolling a dice each turn. This results in either Fred or Barney moving to the appropriate space on the board, and depending on what they land on, we're gonna be either needing to clear a level in that particular world, defeat a boss, or even go to shops, among a few other things. On some of these zones, our wives, Wilma and Betty, are gonna appear, and if any one of them manage to meet their respective husbands, of Fred or Barney, then they're gonna drag that character back spaces to just an arbitrary location. They're telling you they're gonna take you home, but they just take you back a few spaces, which does put you back a little ways, and then you're trying to race the other character to get ahead of them again. This one is pretty simple. The side-scrolling levels see us doing things like your typical game of that era. We are moving left to right, taking out the enemies. We're avoiding herds of stampeding dino cows, and there's a few other minigame style levels. They do mix it up with some interesting races. They're trying to simulate that vibrant forward speed, those leaning angles, that maximum terrain speed, and that vertical speed in some of these levels. And honestly, these levels are kind of a nice change up as we're playing through this one. The Flintstones, The Treasure of Sierra Madrock is an interesting game, again, because of what they tried to do with the game. This game can get a little bit repetitive, and it can be way too easy at times. But if you're looking for a game to maybe introduce your kids to the Super Nintendo or the Flintstones with, this might be right up your alley. It's simple, it's pretty easy to play, and I'm glad I have this one in my collection because it does have a cool concept for the game. It's maybe just a little too easy. Game number 54 in my Super Nintendo collection is gonna be RoboCop 3. This is another movie title that Ocean brought us to the Super Nintendo, based on that 1993 movie of RoboCop 3. This one was released on a ton of different systems. The Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum, the NES saw this, the Super Nintendo had one, the Game Gear, the Master System, and even the Sega Genesis all had their own RoboCop 3s. So there are a ton of ways to play this one, but if we look at the Super Nintendo version of this one, we can definitely see why it was criticized back in the day. RoboCop 3 is a super difficult game. RoboCop is slow, he's awkward to maneuver, and the collision detection in this one is poor at best. The sound effects are rough, the sprites aren't the best, and this one really lacks much in the way of originality. Sure, the backgrounds in this one might be a little bit better than some of the other games we saw back then, but that just can't save the gameplay in this one. RoboCop 3 is going to be a slog to try to get through. The enemies can shoot at you from off screen. Right at the start, we're in this bullet hell, and with RoboCop being slow and awkward, it just makes for a ton of unnecessary deaths before we even figure out the controls in this one. We get 3 lives and 4 continues in RoboCop 3, and there are only 4 levels to this game. But you probably won't see all of them before you're tossing the controller. There are literally enemies and bullets coming at you from all directions right when we start with this one. One thing this one does try is some overhead shoot 'em up style levels thrown into the mix, but they just aren't that good either. This one honestly would probably be better left on the shelf unless you're looking to rage quit after getting blasted by enemies from off screen. But I am glad I have this one in my Super Nintendo collection simply because it is RoboCop. Bubsy 2 is the second game in the Bubsy series, and it's gonna be game number 55 in my Super Nintendo collection.
It's me again, Bubsy. I'm back. And you've probably been wondering where I've been. Well, Bubsy 1 was a huge success. The money was pouring in. So I thought, hey, babe, this bobcat needs a little time off, n'est-ce pas? And the next thing you know, I'm dangling my claws in the French Riviera with my new girlfriend. What a life. Anyway, there I am on the beach, and the cellular goes off. My agent's telling me they want to make a sequel. Bubsy 2. Wait a minute, I hate sequels. So I told this sleazeball I'll only do it under the following conditions. I get total creative control. I'm writing it. I get 30 levels and 5 worlds to play. I get 3 mini games. I'm hiring tons of bad guys. I'm getting cases of M&Ms delivered to the set every day. I get 4 levels of difficulty from easy to really hard. I get a 1 or 2 player option. And of course, I get the final cut. It's gotta be way more fun than those boring old run and jump games. Well, that's what I told them, and they went for it. Bingo! Bubsy 2 was born.
I like it.
This one was originally released by Accolade in 1994 on the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo, and the Game Boy. And this is one I never did play as a kid. Bubsy 2 is a platformer game. The story in this one is that a new theme park is being announced, and Bubsy, Arnold, and Bubsy's younger twin relatives are all excited about it. And fearing that the place might be a little too crowded, the twins decide to break into the theme park on the eve of its opening day. Bubsy 2 is a 2D side-scrolling platformer. It plays very similar to the first Bubsy game, but this one we do get to pick our stages. We're going to be maneuvering Bubsy through the levels, through jumping, gliding, and trying to collect objects like marbles as we go. This one is pretty good. It does have some good humor in it. The controls aren't terrible, and overall, Bubsy 2 is a fun game. I just never got into the Bubsy games, so it doesn't have that nostalgic pull for me that it might for you. And that's okay, not every game is for everybody. There's going to be games on this list that you might love that I might be saying things like, you should leave this on the shelf for. But that's the beautiful thing about these games, is all of us have connections to some of them we love simply for nostalgia. I mean, this is a pretty good game, and this way I have to hunt down the first game in the series, so I am happy to have this one in my collection. Game number 56 in my Super Nintendo collection is gonna be Vegas Stakes. Vegas Stakes is one of only a couple casino games that we saw on the Super Nintendo. The Super Famicom did see a few other casino style games released in Japan, but those ones never made it over here. So this is one of, I think, two that are like this on the Super Nintendo. Coming to us from HAL Laboratories in April of 1993, this one does try to make casino games have a little bit more depth. This one is the sequel to Vegas Dreams on the NES, which I do think is kind of neat. Mostly because I didn't think a casino game was going to be part of a series of games. In this one, we can pick single player or multiplayer. The only game we can't play in multiplayer is going to be poker, for obvious reasons of seeing everyone else's cards. But if we do select single player, we're going to start this one out in a car that is driving to Vegas. We are going to have some friends coming with us on this Vegas vacation. We get introduced to Cliff, Maria, Isabel, and Richard, and they're all eager to get to the casino and start gambling. At the start of this game, we were given $1,000. The goal is to win $10 million. And if we lose all the money, the game ends and we just see ourselves there with empty pockets. Vegas Stakes has 5 casinos that we can play in and unlock by earning a set amount of cash as we go. In this one, we can play blackjack, poker, craps, roulette, and even slot machines. Now, on top of losing all of our money in the casinos, we can also interact with our traveling friends and with random people in the casino. And we are going to make or lose money depending on those interactions. Just make sure you watch out for the pickpockets out there. Vegas Stakes is a cool one. It does try to make those casino games a little bit more interesting with those friends and those interactions. I think it's cool. This is a sequel to Vegas Dream on the Nintendo, and for that reason, I'm glad to have this one in my Super Nintendo collection. Game number 57 in my Super Nintendo collection is gonna be Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures. This one is a different one. It's gonna be a point and click style game with Pac-Man as the character we're just kind of interacting with. Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures came out on the Super Nintendo in 1994. This one does come from Namco, and it is different to say the least.
So, you got friends, but imagine if you had one special friend.
Hi, I'm your buddy.
One that would do anything for you.
Here, drink this. Chewy. Wear this.
Well, you can with Pac-Man 2, the cool interactive cartoon. He's your best pal, and no matter how much you abuse him, he'll still come back for more. So get Pac-Man 2 for Sega and Super NES.
Get the box.
I mean, what are friends for?
In this one, we will be adventuring around town, basically just clicking anything and everything and hoping it causes Pac-Man to do something, maybe even protect him from something. It's weird because as we're playing it, not only are we trying to complete the quests we're given, but we're also trying to keep our little friend Pac-Man happy at the same time. The tasks are things like finding milk for Pac Baby, or picking a special flower for Lucy's birthday, who's a friend of Pac Jr. I'm moving a couch and then I'm wandering around streets trying not to get jumped by random dogs. The ghosts from Pac-Man do make an appearance in this one as well, and they're just out trying to destroy poor Pac-Man. I can feed Pac-Man power pellets and turn him into Super Pac-Man in this one. If I do that, he is going to chase down and eat all the ghosts, just like in the original Pac-Man game, but without the maze. Pac-Man 2 is just kind of all over the place. The thing is, I'm clicking random things in the area, and I need to manage Pac-Man's mood as we're going as well. I can shoot down apples from a tree, which Pac-Man will eat and make him happier. But I can also shoot Pac-Man in the face with a slingshot, which will make him irritated or depressed. I feel like getting shot in the face with a slingshot is probably gonna do that to a guy. And Pac-Man's mood will also determine how cooperative he becomes. For instance, making Pac-Man too happy will cause him to become smug and cocky, and this is gonna result in him being less willing to follow the orders we're giving him, which can get a little bit frustrating when Pac-Man's strutting around and walks right into something you're trying to get him to avoid. This one is a little bit different. It's kind of just a fine game. It's an interactive comic book is kind of what they titled it. I guess if you like Pac-Man, this one might be a game for you. Game number 58 in my Super Nintendo collection is gonna be Mario Paint. Mario Paint is one that I had as a kid and really is a product of its time. This one came to us in a time when not every one of us had a computer in our homes. Not every one of us had a little supercomputer in our pockets. So for me, when I got Mario Paint for the Super Nintendo, this was my first real time using a mouse at home and making anything like I could in Mario Paint. This one has that paint screen that feels a lot like every other paint program from the time. We can kind of make whatever we want. We can draw whatever we want, make some art, and then we can hit one of the many clear effects that actually are pretty cool. There's a stamp editor in this one, and I know I used this one a ton as a kid, making my own little pixel characters, or even just changing the color of Mario's hat. There's an animation tool where we can make our own little cartoons, and even a music editor in this one, which is really cool. I can make my own tunes, and I can use a dog barking or a pig snorting to make up the music. And this was always fun back in the day. The one mini game that this one does have is the Fly Swatter game, and I can remember playing this one a bunch. Now, I did find the original mouse and this original hard plastic mouse pad that the game came with, so I could play it on the original hardware. But if you don't have that, you can always pick up one of these Hyperkin mice for the Super Nintendo and play it that way. I loved Mario Paint as a kid for what it was. Sure, kids now might not understand that, but this was a fun game that I'm really happy to have again, especially with that mouse and that mouse pad. That brings back a lot of memories. And sometimes that's all it takes for it to be a really good game that we want to have in our collection, are those memories. Again, if you have any memories of any of the games I'm talking about in this video, let me know in the comments. I want to hear about it, or hear about some other games that you had on the Super Nintendo that you really miss and want to tell me about.
It was quiet. except for the cows. Then a rock fell from the sky, so I sat on it. But it was really a spaceship. Then aliens surrounded me, and I could actually read their minds. Should we fry them or boil them? Whoa, so I pushed a button and made them disintegrate. Okay, so I made it up. Then I made it all happen.
Mario Paint. Draw and make music. Only on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
ActRaiser is a game that a lot of people love. The first one has those side-scrolling levels and that town building feature, and so many people are going to say that it's a top-tier game. So when we got a sequel for it back in 1993, you would have thought that it was a home run. But for some reason, they decided they needed to step away from the first game in the series. ActRaiser 2 is going to be game number 59 in my Super Nintendo collection. In ActRaiser 2, they did away with that town building feature. This one is strictly a side-scrolling game, and honestly, this one is really, really difficult. I know I've said that about a bunch of games in this video, but I feel like they really ramped up the difficulty on the Super Nintendo to make it super with a lot of these games. All the enemies are super fast in this one, and they literally come from everywhere. You can't play this one like you think you would want to play it, or you are going to get your butt kicked. ActRaiser 2 is a game you're going to want to play with purpose, slowly and carefully, or you will get overwhelmed and die. We play as a god here, so you'd think we'd be super powerful, but we can get attacked by even a dragonfly and they will kill us. In this one, we're trying to stop that big baddie, which they call Tanzara in the North American release, but they still call him Satan in the Japanese version. The boss levels in this one can be super difficult. Honestly, along with the rest of the levels, this is all going to be difficult for you. I feel like you're going to die a lot if you're playing ActRaiser 2, and you're going to just need to get used to it. Honestly, the art and the style in this one is super cool and very beautiful, but just getting my butt kicked non-stop definitely makes me want to put this one down. I would love to see what the next level is going to look like, because again, the visuals are amazing. I just don't seem to be able to get that far. Honestly, I would probably just play the original ActRaiser, but if you've played that one to death and you want to play this one, I guess you can. It's just gonna be a challenge. Game number 60 in my Super Nintendo collection is gonna be Earthbound. Earthbound came to us from HAL Laboratories in 1995, and if you go into this thinking it's gonna be your typical RPG, you're definitely gonna be disappointed. You need to go into this one for what it is and prepare yourself for that. Now, I had never played this one growing up. I'd always heard it was cool, but honestly, I always had a hard time getting into it. I had to take a big step back and look at this one for what it is. It's quirky and it plays by its own rules. I had to understand that this isn't a Final Fantasy game. This isn't a Dragon Quest game. This is Earthbound, and that's all it really needs to be awesome. Earthbound is set in a more modern time than our typical RPGs on the system. I guess it would have been a modern time if we're looking at when the game was released. We're gonna take control of Ness, and we get woke up by a meteor that's crashed, and being that inquisitive kid from the 90s, probably watching movies like Goonies a few too many times, we're gonna head off and investigate right away. Earthbound might not be for everyone. It wasn't for me until I really took the time to understand why I felt that way. The more I played it, the more I enjoyed the quirky characters and the humor that it brings to an RPG style of game. Earthbound is a very story-driven game. You're gonna want to explore the towns and talk to everyone, either for their funny lines or just to progress the story. But it makes you want to talk to everyone because you don't know what's coming next. From the funny and interesting enemies to the attacks that they're gonna come at us with in this game, it's just gonna make you laugh or shake your head as you go. I do wish I could see the characters when I was in these battles, just because I think that would look pretty cool, but the battles in Earthbound aren't really the focus. It does have an auto battle feature, and if you bump into one of these enemies and your level is above theirs by a substantial amount, you don't even have to fight them. You just win the battle by default, which honestly is gonna save you some time here and there.
Can 4 average kids save the world from an alien invader? With your help, they can in Earthbound for your Super NES. The fate of mankind is being threatened by the evil alien Gygus, but 4 spunky kids with psychic powers accept this incredible challenge and embark on a journey to save the world. 24 megs power this adventurous game as you travel to 12 different locations and select from more than 40 weapons and 80 items to battle your enemies. Battery backup saves your progress in your quest to destroy Gygus. It's Earthbound for your Super NES.
Now get the Earthbound Player's Guide free with your purchase of the Super NES Earthbound Game Pack.
Overall, Earthbound has a really interesting story that will make you want to keep playing it. You just have to let it. The music is really fitting in this game and honestly grew on me really quickly. Some of you probably love Earthbound, and some of you are probably like me and never really got into it. But if you're like me, hopefully you'll give it another chance. It is price charting at about $340 for just a loose copy on this one. So just to pick a cartridge up to try it might not be in the cards for you, but if you can find a way to play it, I would definitely suggest it. You're just not gonna find another game that is quite like this one. Earthbound is totally worth having in my Super Nintendo collection, and it really was worth giving it another chance.